The unexpected arrival. The sun set over a bustling city, casting a golden glow on the skyscrapers. People went about their lives, unaware of the danger that was about to come. Earth was a place of peace, where technology had advanced, and people had begun to explore the stars. Little did they know, a cataclysmic event was unfolding in the far reaches of the galaxy. Somewhere deep in space, a massive planet, once a home to countless alien beings, was on a collision course with another world. This was not just any planet. It was known for its rich culture and advanced civilization. As the two worlds neared their terrible fate, panic spread among its inhabitants. Ships filled with terrified aliens rushed toward the stars, seeking safety from the impending disaster. Among those fleeing was a beautiful alien princess named Lyra. She had long, shimmering hair and eyes that sparkled like stars. She was determined to survive and save her people. With her loyal bodyguards, she boarded a sleek, silver ship. As they blasted off into the unknown, the princess looked back at her home, now fading into darkness. Tears filled her eyes. She was leaving behind everything she knew. Back on Earth, a special military unit prepared for an unexpected visitor. Captain Alex Ryder, a brave soldier with a strong sense of duty, received an urgent message. "We have reports of unidentified ships entering our atmosphere," his commander said, urgency in his voice. Alex's heart raced. He had trained for this moment, but never imagined it would involve alien life. As Alex suited up, he felt a mix of excitement and fear. He had always dreamed of adventure, but now it was real. He would be on the front lines of first contact with another species. He gathered his team, and they boarded their armored vehicles, ready to face whatever came their way. The sky darkened as alien ships descended from the heavens. They were sleek and strange, unlike anything seen on Earth. Alex and his team set up defenses, their hearts pounding with anticipation. Suddenly, a bright flash lit up the sky, and a ship spiraled down, crashing into a nearby field. Dust and debris filled the air. Without hesitation, Alex led his team toward the crash site. As they approached, they saw a figure emerge from the wreckage. It was Princess Lyra. She stood tall, despite the chaos around her. Her vibrant attire glimmered in the fading sunlight. Alex couldn't believe his eyes. She was both beautiful and powerful, exuding a strength he had never seen before. But before he could take a step closer, alien soldiers appeared, their weapons raised. They shouted in a language Alex couldn't understand. Fear gripped his heart. He knew they had to protect the princess at all costs. In that moment, Alex made a decision that would change everything. He stepped forward, ready to confront the enemies for the sake of the alien princess and the future of both their worlds. As the tension in the air thickened, Alex and Lyra exchanged a glance, each realizing that they were now part of something much bigger than themselves. They were bound by fate, and together they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. The unexpected arrival of the princess marked the beginning of a journey that would change their lives forever. A soldier's mission. The air was thick with tension as Alex Ryder stood beside the smoldering wreck of the alien ship. Dust settled slowly, revealing the stunning figure of Princess Lyra. She seemed out of place in the chaotic scene, with her radiant beauty and calm demeanor amidst the wreckage. Alex's heart raced, not only from the danger surrounding them, but also from the incredible responsibility he felt. He was a soldier, trained to protect, and now he had to keep this alien princess safe. Lyra looked at Alex with gratitude in her eyes. He could see that she was terrified yet determined. The alien soldiers behind her shouted angrily, demanding her return. They had come for her, and Alex knew he had to act fast. His team had surrounded the area, ready to defend her. "Stay close to me," Alex said, his voice steady despite the chaos. He felt an unusual bond forming between them, a connection that went beyond words. He didn't understand her language, but her eyes spoke volumes. They shared a moment of understanding before he shouted to his team, "Get ready to engage." As the enemy forces advanced, Alex and his team took their positions. Weapons were drawn, and the tension was palpable. He felt the weight of the moment on his shoulders. This was more than a mission. It was a fight for a life, and possibly for the future of two worlds. The first shots rang out as the alien soldiers opened fire. Alex moved quickly, coordinating with his team, using hand signals to direct them. They returned fire, creating a protective barrier around Lyra. She remained close to him, her eyes wide with fear, but filled with a fierce determination. "Don't be afraid," Alex reassured her, even though he felt scared himself. "We'll get you to safety." In the middle of the fight, Alex caught glimpses of Lyra's strength. She moved with grace, dodging debris, and using her agility to stay out of the line of fire. When one of the alien soldiers got too close, she raised her hand, and to Alex's astonishment, a bright light erupted from her fingertips, stunning the enemy. Alex's jaw dropped. She was not just a princess, she was powerful. As the battle raged on, Alex realized that Lyra had become more than just a mission for him. He felt an urge to protect her, to ensure she could return home and save her people. This thought fueled his bravery. They fought together, side by side, as the chaos swirled around them. Each time he glanced at her, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. Eventually, the alien soldiers retreated, realizing they were outmatched. Alex and his team cheered, but he knew this was just the beginning. They couldn't stay in one place for too long. The enemies would regroup and come back stronger. "Let's move," Alex commanded, leading Lyra away from the crash site and into the cover of the trees nearby. They needed a plan, a safe place where they could regroup and figure out their next steps. As they ran, Alex glanced back at Lyra. She was beautiful, fierce, and unlike anyone he had ever met. Despite the fear in her eyes, he could see the hope beginning to shine through. Together, they would find a way to save her world and perhaps even forge a new path for Earth. Little did they know, this was just the start of a journey that would test their courage, strength, and their very understanding of what it meant to fight for someone else. First encounter. As Alex led Princess Lyra deeper into the forest, the sounds of battle faded behind them, replaced by the soft rustle of leaves and the chirping of birds. The air felt cooler here, a welcome change from the chaos they had just escaped. Alex glanced back at Lyra, who moved gracefully despite the stress of their situation. Her long hair flowed behind her like a silver ribbon, and her eyes sparkled with a mix of fear and determination. They found a small clearing, surrounded by tall trees that provided some cover. Alex motioned for Lyra to sit on a fallen log while he kept watch. He could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on him. They needed to talk, to understand each other, but how could he communicate with someone from another world? "Are you okay?" he asked, trying to keep his voice calm. Lyra nodded, though her face showed concern. She looked around the forest, taking in the sights and sounds of Earth for the first time. Alex took a deep breath. He wanted to reassure her, but was unsure how. "We're safe for now," he said, glancing at the dense trees surrounding them. "We need to figure out what to do next." Lyra tilted her head, her expression curious. Then, slowly, she began to gesture. She pointed to herself and then to Alex, repeating the word Lyra in a soft voice. Alex understood she was introducing herself. He smiled and pointed to himself, saying, "Alex, Alex," she repeated, trying to mimic his pronunciation. There was something warm and genuine about her smile, and Alex felt a spark of connection between them. They were two beings from different worlds, yet they were both fighting for survival. Lyra then made a series of hand signs, drawing shapes in the air. Alex squinted, trying to decipher her message. After a moment, she pointed to the sky, and then made a sweeping gesture with her arms, as if she were embracing the entire universe. She looked at Alex, her expression filled with hope. He realized she was trying to explain where she came from. She was showing him her world, the beauty of her home before it was destroyed. Alex's heart sank at the thought of what she had lost. He wished he could help her, to somehow bring back what had been taken. "Your home. It was destroyed, wasn't it?" he asked softly. Lyra's eyes filled with tears as she nodded. She pointed to her heart and then made a fist, signifying strength. Alex felt a rush of admiration for her courage. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the direction they had come. The tranquility of the moment shattered, and Alex's instincts kicked in. "We need to go," he said urgently, pulling Lyra to her feet. They had to move before the enemy found them again. As they dashed through the trees, Alex looked at Lyra and saw determination in her eyes. She wasn't just a princess, she was a fighter. They were in this together, and he would do everything in his power to protect her. With each step, they began to develop a bond, united by their shared goal of survival. Even though they came from different worlds, they were now allies. Alex felt a growing sense of hope. If they could understand each other, they might find a way to save her people and build a future together. As they navigated the forest, Alex knew this was only the beginning. They had a long journey ahead, filled with challenges and dangers. But with Lyra by his side, he felt ready to face whatever lay ahead. Together, they would find a way to bring peace to their worlds, no matter the cost. Running for their lives. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the forest floor as Alex and Lyra dashed through the underbrush. The sounds of their hurried footsteps mixed with the rustle of leaves and the distant cries of wildlife. Behind them, the echoes of the enemy's pursuit grew louder, reminding them that they were not safe yet. Alex's heart raced as he focused on keeping Lyra close. "Keep up with me," he called back, trying to sound encouraging even though he was scared. Lyra nodded, her expression serious. She was quick on her feet, her agility surprising him. It was clear she was used to moving fast, even in difficult situations. Suddenly, they burst into a clearing. Alex skidded to a stop, scanning their surroundings. The trees were dense on all sides, but there was no clear path ahead. "We need to hide," he whispered urgently. They had to find a way to stay out of sight until they could figure out their next move. Lyra pointed to a thick cluster of bushes nearby. Without waiting for Alex's approval, she hurried toward them. Alex followed, and they crouched down, pressing themselves into the greenery. From their hiding place, they could hear the voices of the alien soldiers searching for them. "They must be close," one voice shouted in a strange language. Alex's heart pounded in his chest as he strained to listen. He could feel the tension in the air, thick and heavy. They needed to stay quiet. Lyra's hand brushed against Alex's, and he felt a spark of reassurance. He turned to her, seeing her face illuminated by the last rays of sunlight filtering through the leaves. "We'll make it," he whispered, trying to boost their spirits. As the enemy soldiers moved closer, Alex caught snippets of their conversation. "She cannot be far. Search every inch of this forest." The urgency in their voices sent chills down his spine. He knew they had to act quickly. After what felt like an eternity, the soldiers moved past their hiding spot. Alex and Lyra remained still, barely breathing, listening as the sounds faded into the distance. The moment they were sure the coast was clear, Alex glanced at Lyra, relief washing over him. "We need to keep moving," he said quietly. "They'll be back." Lyra nodded, determination in her eyes. They emerged from the bushes, and Alex led the way, his mind racing with thoughts of where to go next. As they navigated deeper into the forest, Alex's thoughts turned to Lyra. "What can you do?" he asked, hoping to understand her abilities better. Lyra stopped and looked at him, her expression thoughtful. She held out her hand, and a soft glow began to radiate from her fingertips. Alex's eyes widened in amazement. "That's incredible," he exclaimed. With a flick of her wrist, the glow expanded, illuminating the area around them. "This is my power," Lyra explained, her voice barely above a whisper. I can create light and energy, but it takes strength. Alex nodded, realizing her abilities could be crucial in their escape. We can use that, he said, feeling a sense of hope. But we need to save your energy for when we really need it. Suddenly, a noise interrupted their conversation. A branch snapped nearby, and Alex felt a surge of adrenaline. "Run," he shouted, grabbing Lyra's hand and pulling her along. They sprinted through the trees, the sound of footsteps growing louder behind them. Fear surged in Alex's chest, but he pushed it down. They had to stay strong. Lyra ran beside him, her light flickering as they dashed through the thick underbrush. With every step, they dodged branches and leaped over roots. Alex could feel his legs burning, but he didn't dare stop. Lyra matched his pace, her determination fueling his own. They were running not just for their lives, but for a future where they could fight back together. Just as they reached the edge of the forest, Alex glanced back. The enemy soldiers had emerged, their faces filled with anger and frustration. They were closing in, and Alex knew they had to find a way to escape. With a burst of energy, he propelled himself forward, pulling Lyra with him into the open. They had to find safety, and they had to do it fast. Finding shelter, the moment Alex and Lyra burst out of the forest, they found themselves in a vast open field. The setting sun cast a warm glow over the landscape, but there was no time to appreciate the beauty. They could still hear the angry shouts of the alien soldiers behind them, their pursuit relentless. "Over there," Alex shouted, pointing to a rundown barn in the distance. It looked old and worn, but provided a glimmer of hope. They sprinted toward it, adrenaline pushing them forward as they dashed across the field. The barn was surrounded by tall grass, making it an excellent hiding place. They reached the barn just as the first soldiers broke through the tree line. "Quick," Alex urged, pulling open the heavy door. It creaked loudly, echoing in the quiet evening air. They slipped inside just in time, ducking behind a stack of hay bales as the door swung shut with a heavy thud. Inside the barn, the air was thick with the scent of hay and dust. Light streamed through cracks in the wooden walls, casting shadows that danced across the floor. They crouched behind the bales, listening intently for any sounds outside. "I think we're safe for now," Alex whispered, glancing at Lyra. Her face was pale, but her eyes shone with determination. He admired her strength, even in such a scary situation. "We can rest here and think about what to do next." Lyra nodded but stayed silent, her brow furrowed in thought. Alex felt a pang of concern. He knew this was difficult for her. She had lost her home and was now running for her life on a strange planet. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. "I will be," she replied, her voice steady. "We have to find a way to contact my people. They need to know I'm safe." Alex's mind raced as he considered their options. "If we can get to a communication tower, maybe we can send a message," he suggested. "But we'll need a plan. The soldiers won't give up easily." Lyra took a deep breath, her eyes sparkling with determination. "I can help. My powers can create a distraction. While I keep them busy, you can find the tower." "That's a great idea," Alex exclaimed. He felt a surge of hope. "We can do this together." As they spoke, the sounds of the soldiers grew closer outside. Alex peeked through a crack in the barn wall. He could see several alien soldiers searching the area, their faces filled with anger and frustration. They were getting desperate. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from outside as one of the soldiers kicked a nearby fence post. "She has to be around here somewhere," the soldier shouted. "Search every building." Alex's heart raced. They had to act fast. "Lyra, it's time," he said, turning back to her. "We need to create a diversion now." Lyra nodded, determination on her face. "I will create a bright light. It will draw them away from the barn." "Okay, but be careful," Alex warned. He wanted to protect her, but he knew this was their best chance. Lyra closed her eyes, concentrating. Alex watched in awe as her hands began to glow, filling the dim barn with a warm light. Suddenly, with a flick of her wrist, a dazzling burst of energy shot out into the sky, illuminating the entire area. The soldiers outside were instantly drawn to the light. "Over there," one shouted, pointing towards the shimmering glow. Alex watched as they all ran toward the source, leaving the barn unguarded. "Now," Alex urged Lyra, grabbing her hand. They dashed out of the barn and into the tall grass, moving quickly but quietly. They stayed low, keeping their heads down as they moved away from the barn. "This way," Alex whispered, leading her toward the road that could take them to the communication tower he had seen on a map earlier. As they sprinted, Alex couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement mixed with fear. They were alive, working together, and doing the impossible. They were running not just for their lives, but for hope, a hope that they could save Lyra's people and protect each other in the process. The betrayal. The night had fallen, cloaking the world in darkness as Alex and Lyra continued their journey toward the communication tower. The air was cool, and the sounds of the forest were replaced by the distant hum of the city. They moved quietly, their hearts pounding with the urgency of their mission. After a while, they reached the edge of a small town. It was a place Alex knew well, filled with familiar streets and buildings. But tonight, it felt different. It felt dangerous. "We need to be careful," he whispered to Lyra. "Stay close to me." Lyra nodded, her eyes scanning the shadows. "I can sense something wrong," she replied, her voice low. Alex felt a chill run down his spine. He trusted her instincts. They had kept them safe so far. As they moved deeper into the town, they decided to take a shortcut through an alleyway. It was dark and narrow, lined with old brick walls. They stayed close to each other, but as they turned a corner, they were startled by the sound of footsteps echoing behind them. "Alex," Lyra said, her voice trembling slightly. "I think we're being followed." Alex turned to look. A figure was emerging from the shadows. It was a man, dressed in a dark coat. He looked familiar, but Alex couldn't quite place him. As the man stepped closer, Alex's heart sank. It was Sergeant Miller, an old friend from the military. But something in Miller's eyes seemed off. "Miller," Alex called out, relief flooding his voice. "What are you doing here?" Miller stopped, but his expression was cold. "Alex, you shouldn't be here," he said, his voice steady but lacking warmth. "You have to come with me. This isn't safe." Confused, Alex glanced at Lyra, who was watching Miller with suspicion. "We can't go anywhere with you," Alex replied firmly. "We're trying to find a way to contact Lyra's people." "Lyra?" Miller's eyes narrowed. "You mean the alien princess? She's a danger to us all." Lyra stepped forward, her gaze fierce. "I'm not a danger. I'm here to save my people from destruction." Miller laughed, but it was not a kind laugh. "You think we can trust her? She's part of the reason for the invasion." "Stop!" Alex shouted, feeling a mix of anger and confusion. "You don't know what you're talking about." Suddenly, Miller's expression shifted from cold to calculating. "I know exactly what I'm talking about, Alex. The government wants her captured. They see her as a threat." "What?" Alex couldn't believe what he was hearing. "You're working for them. You'd betray me for a job." Miller's eyes darkened. "It's not just a job, Alex. It's about keeping our world safe. If we don't stop her now, who knows what will happen." Lyra stepped back, her face a mix of hurt and determination. "You don't understand. I'm not your enemy." But Miller was not listening. "You have a choice to make, Alex," he said, raising his weapon. "You can hand her over, or I will take her by force." In that moment, everything shifted. Alex felt his heart pounding in his chest. He could not betray Lyra. She had become more than just an ally. She was a friend. "I will never turn her over to you," Alex said, his voice firm. Miller's expression twisted in anger. Then you're making a big mistake. He lunged forward, trying to grab Lyra. Alex reacted instantly. He pushed Lyra behind him, ready to defend her. "Get back," he shouted, raising his weapon. In the heat of the moment, the alleyway filled with tension. Alex stood between Lyra and Miller, determination in his eyes. This was more than just a betrayal. It was a test of loyalty. He could either protect the person he cared about or abandon her to a friend turned enemy. "Choose wisely, Alex," Miller hissed, his weapon aimed directly at Lyra. But Alex's resolve only strengthened. He had made his choice. "I choose her," he said boldly. With that, the alley erupted into chaos. The fight for survival was no longer just about escaping. It was about standing up for what was right, even against someone he once considered a friend. The final battle. The tension in the alleyway was electric as Alex stood his ground, the weight of his decision pressing heavily on his shoulders. He had chosen to protect Lyra, and now they faced Sergeant Miller, an old friend turned enemy. The moment hung in the air, thick with uncertainty. Miller's expression twisted with rage. "You think you can protect her? She will bring destruction to our world," he shouted, his weapon trained on Lyra. "No, you're wrong," Alex shouted back, his heart pounding. "Lyra wants to save her people, not destroy ours." Miller hesitated, his eyes darting between Alex and Lyra. It was a brief moment, but Alex knew he had to act. "Run, Lyra," he yelled, pushing her toward the alley's exit. Lyra didn't hesitate. She dashed past Alex, her fear turning into resolve. She was determined to fight for her home and for the bond they had built. Alex followed close behind, ready to protect her at any cost. As they burst out of the alley, they found themselves on a busy street. The city was alive with lights and sounds, but the chaos in their hearts drowned it all out. They had to reach the communication tower before it was too late. "Miller will come after us," Lyra exclaimed, glancing back as they sprinted down the sidewalk. "I know," Alex replied, his eyes scanning the area. They needed to find a way to gain the upper hand. Suddenly, he spotted an old delivery truck parked nearby. "This way." He led Lyra toward it, hoping to use it as a hiding spot. They ducked behind the truck, catching their breath. "What's the plan?" Lyra asked, her eyes wide with determination. "We need to create a diversion," Alex said, formulating a quick strategy. "If we can get to the tower and send your message, we can alert your people." Just then, a shout echoed down the street. There they are. It was Miller, his voice sharp and filled with fury. "Stop them." Alex's heart raced. "Now or never," he shouted. He grabbed a nearby trash can lid and threw it as far as he could, creating a loud crash in the opposite direction. The noise distracted the soldiers just long enough for Alex and Lyra to make a break for the communication tower, which loomed in the distance. They sprinted through the streets, adrenaline fueling their legs. As they neared the tower, they could hear the thundering footsteps of Miller's team behind them. "We have to hurry," Alex urged. They reached the entrance of the tower, pushing through the heavy door just as Miller's soldiers closed in. Inside, the building was dimly lit, and the air was filled with the hum of machinery. "Where's the communication room?" Lyra asked, scanning the area. "Follow me," Alex replied, leading her down a narrow hallway. They'd reached a small room filled with screens and blinking lights. Alex quickly scanned the equipment. "I think I can send a message from here," he said, his fingers flying over the controls. Lyra stood guard at the door, her heart racing as she prepared for the worst. Just as Alex connected the device, the door burst open. Miller stormed in, his face twisted with anger. "End of the line, Alex," he shouted, raising his weapon. "Get down," Alex yelled, pushing Lyra to the ground as he dove behind the console. Bullets ricocheted off the walls, and chaos erupted around them. Lyra felt a surge of energy rise within her. "I can help," she exclaimed, her hands glowing with power. "Be careful," Alex warned. Don't expose yourself too much. But Lyra was determined. With a wave of her hand, she unleashed a bright burst of light that filled the room, momentarily blinding Miller and his soldiers. Now, Alex shouted, seizing the opportunity. He charged forward, using the moment of confusion to disarm Miller. They wrestled for control, their bodies colliding in a fierce struggle. Lyra focused her energy, creating a barrier around Alex. It shimmered with light, protecting him from incoming shots as he fought to gain the upper hand. With one final push, Alex knocked Miller to the ground, his weapon skidding across the floor. "It's over, Miller. You need to see the truth," he shouted, breathing heavily. Miller glared up at Alex, his anger boiling. "You're making a mistake." "No, I'm saving us," Alex retorted, determination in his eyes. He turned to Lyra, who was standing tall, her energy radiating around them. "Send your message," he urged her. With a nod, Lyra stepped forward, her glowing hands working the controls. As the signal connected, a wave of hope surged through Alex. They were fighting not just for their lives, but for a future where they could work together to bring peace. As the message went out, the realization of what they were about to accomplish filled them with strength. They were ready to face whatever came next, united against a common enemy. The battle was far from over, but together, they would find a way to victory and sacrifice. The room hummed with energy as Lyra completed the transmission. The glowing screens flickered, sending beams of light across the walls, illuminating their determined faces. Alex felt a surge of hope. They had sent the message to Lyra's people. Help was on the way. But the moment of relief was short-lived. Miller was not finished. He scrambled to his feet, eyes blazing with fury. "You think you've won," he shouted, his voice echoing in the small room. "You'll regret this. We won't let you stop us," Alex declared, stepping protectively in front of Lyra. The air was thick with tension, and Alex knew this would be the most critical moment of their fight. Miller reached for his weapon, but before he could aim, Lyra raised her hands, channeling her energy. A powerful wave of light surged forward, striking Miller and pushing him back. The shock knocked him off balance, and he fell against the console with a thud. "Alex, now," Lyra urged, her voice filled with urgency. Alex rushed toward Miller, but he had underestimated the surgeon's resolve. Miller scrambled to his feet, anger burning in his eyes. "You'll pay for this, traitor," he shouted, lunging at Alex with unexpected speed. The two men collided, grappling for control. Alex felt Miller's strength, fueled by desperation and anger. They fought fiercely, each one trying to gain the upper hand. Meanwhile, Lyra focused on maintaining her barrier, her energy flickering with intensity. "I can't hold this forever," she warned, her brow furrowed with concentration. Alex could see Miller pushing against him, trying to reach his weapon. "You need to finish this, Lyra," he shouted, struggling against Miller's weight. Lyra took a deep breath. "I'll do what I can." She concentrated harder, her hands glowing brighter. She summoned a powerful blast of energy, aimed not at Miller, but at the controls of the communication room. The room shook as the blast struck the console, sending sparks flying and plunging them into darkness. The lights flickered, and alarms blared, filling the air with a chaotic sound. "Miller," Lyra shouted, her voice strong. "This ends now." With her energy focused, she unleashed a final wave of light. It enveloped the room, and for a moment, everything went silent. The bright glow pushed Miller back, and Alex took advantage of the distraction. He tackled Miller, wrestling him to the ground. "Stop this," Alex yelled, pinning Miller down. "You're only making things worse." Miller's eyes filled with fear and anger. "You don't know what you're doing. You'll let her destroy everything." "No, we're fighting for peace," Alex insisted, holding Miller down. "You're the one who can't see it." Suddenly, Lyra stepped forward, her energy still swirling around her. "Miller, listen to me," she called. "I'm not your enemy. I want to save my people and yours." For a moment, Miller hesitated, his expression wavering. But the moment passed, and his anger returned. "You'll never take me alive," he shouted, struggling against Alex's grip. Before Alex could react, Miller reached for a hidden knife at his belt. Alex's heart raced as he realized what was about to happen. He was too late. With a swift motion, Miller plunged the knife into his own side. "No," Alex shouted, releasing him in shock. Miller collapsed to the floor, his face contorted in pain and regret. "You don't understand," he gasped, blood pooling beneath him. Lyra rushed to Miller's side, her hands glowing with energy. "I can help," she cried, but Miller shook his head weakly. "No, it's too late for me," he whispered, his voice fading. "But you have to fight for peace." As his eyes closed, the weight of his sacrifice hung heavily in the air. Alex felt a mix of emotions: anger, sadness, and regret. Miller had been their friend once, and now he was gone, all because of fear and misunderstanding. Lyra turned to Alex, tears in her eyes. "We have to go," she said, her voice shaking. "More soldiers will come." With heavy hearts, they left the room, knowing that the battle was far from over. They had sent a message for help, but now they carried the burden of a friend's sacrifice. Together, they would fight not just for their survival, but for a future where peace could thrive. As they emerged into the night, Alex took Lyra's hand, their bond stronger than ever. "We'll make it," he promised, determination shining in his eyes. "For Miller, for your people, we will find a way." With that, they stepped into the darkness, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. A new beginning. The sun began to rise over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. It was a new day, but the weight of the night's events hung heavily on Alex and Lyra. They stood on a hill overlooking the city, the communication tower behind them now silent and still. The battle was over, but the scars of their fight remained. "Do you think they heard us?" Lyra asked, her voice barely above a whisper. She looked out at the city, hoping for a sign. "I believe they did," Alex replied, trying to sound confident. He thought of the message they had sent to Lyra's people, urging them to come and help. "They know what's happening. They'll come for you." Lyra nodded but still looked worried. "And what about Miller?" she asked, tears brimming in her eyes. Alex felt a pang of sorrow. Miller's sacrifice weighed heavily on his heart. "He gave us a chance to fight for peace," Alex said softly. "We can't forget him. We have to make sure his sacrifice meant something." Just then, a flicker of movement caught Alex's eye. He turned to see several small ships appearing in the sky, their sleek forms glinting in the morning light. "Look," he exclaimed, pointing. Lyra's eyes widened with hope. "They came," she shouted, a smile breaking through her sadness. The ships landed gracefully nearby, and the door of the lead ship opened. A group of Lyra's people stepped out, their faces filled with concern and determination. They wore shining armor, and their eyes sparkled with a mix of fear and hope. "Lyra," one of them called out, rushing forward. It was Commander Zarek, Lyra's trusted leader. "We feared the worst. We heard your message." Lyra ran to him, relief flooding her as she embraced her people. "I'm so glad you're here," she said, tears of joy streaming down her face. "We need your help to fight against the invaders." Zarek stepped back, looking at Alex with gratitude. "You helped her," he said, nodding respectfully. "Thank you for protecting our princess." Alex smiled, feeling the weight of his choice lift slightly. "I couldn't let them take her. We need to work together now." Zarek's eyes narrowed with determination. "We will not let our worlds fall apart. We will fight back and restore peace." The assembled warriors began to discuss their plans, their voices filled with energy. Alex felt a renewed sense of purpose as he listened. They would not just defend their homes. They would unite their strengths to bring about a new era of peace. "Let's prepare," Lyra said, her voice strong and clear. "We will show them that we are not afraid." With the sun rising higher in the sky, Alex, Lyra, and the gathered warriors made their way to the edge of the city. They knew the invaders were still out there, but now they had the strength of Lyra's people beside them. As they approached the city center, they saw the remnants of the battle. The buildings scared, the streets filled with debris. But instead of fear, a fire ignited in their hearts. They were ready to reclaim their home. With Lyra leading the way, they began to strategize. Alex felt a sense of belonging that he had never experienced before. He was part of something bigger, fighting for a cause that mattered. As they prepared for their first move against the invaders, Lyra turned to Alex, her eyes filled with gratitude. "I couldn't have done this without you," she said earnestly. Alex smiled, feeling a warmth in his chest. "And I couldn't have done this without you," he replied. "Together, we can change everything." With newfound strength and determination, they set off, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. They were not just fighting for survival. They were fighting for a new beginning, a future where both their worlds could live in harmony. As they marched forward, side by side, the sun shone brightly above them, symbolizing hope and the promise of a better tomorrow. Together, they would write a new story, one filled with courage, friendship, and the unbreakable bond they had formed in the heat of battle.